I would just say, don't be afraid. If you have what you think is a good idea or you have a passion for something, stop in, see Williston Economic Development. There's plenty of opportunities for those that are willing to take a chance.
Recorded live from the heart of the Bakken, it's the Williston Works Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Williston Works Podcast, brought to you by the City of Williston. I'm your host, Anna Nelson, Executive Director of Williston Economic Development. Now, whether you're tuning in for the first time or you're a long-time listener, we're here to bring you conversations with the entrepreneurs, small business owners, and investors shaping Williston's future. Well, today we're highlighting a local entrepreneur who took a chance on a new development and became one of the first tenants in Williston Square. Joining me today is Lenny Johnson, owner of Genesis. That's a local clothing store here in Williston that was one of the very first businesses to open in Williston Square. Lenny, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Anna. It's good to be here.
We're excited to kind of jump into your background and seeing how you came to own and operate this wonderful clothing store here in Williston. So let's get started with your background. Can you tell us kind of about the story and what led you to open what is now Genesis?
Sure. I think one of the biggest parts of my background is I did serve for 6 years, and after the military is when I moved to North Dakota. Went to Minot State. From Minot State, I moved to Dickinson, and I was working at Dickinson State University in an entrepreneurship center, helping small businesses kind of get their feet on the ground, working with marketing and just all of the struggles that new businesses have. And from there, started a clothing store in Dickinson. Had no idea what the oil was doing, had no idea there was even an oil formation at the time. Started a business in Dickinson. And at the time I'd known Sean Wanko through working at Dickinson State, and he had given me a call and said, "Hey, have you ever considered opening a store in Williston?" And toured the city with him in 2010. Got a crash course into Williston and what the city was doing at the time. It was wild, some of the stuff that was happening, just the amount of people that were looking for hope, looking for work, looking for a new start were all pouring into Williston. And 2014 was when my business partner and I at the time made it work. I packed up my family, moved to Williston, opened up the store in 2014, and kind of got off the ground and running. And in 2019, my business partner and I decided to go separate ways. He kept his store. We renamed our store to Genesis. And so we opened 2020 as a new company, same store, just a new name. And then COVID hit, and went through all the challenges of COVID. And then after 2020, we kind of got our feet back on the ground. We opened up a holiday store in Minot in 2022, holiday of 2022, closed that. And then we opened up our new location in the Williston Square in the spring of 2023. We've been here ever since.
That's such a cool story of, you were here kind of around the boom time, and then everything just kind of came together to make it work here in Williston. And we're so excited to have you and your family being a part of our community. So Genesis is a staple in the Williston community today. It's kind of funny. The other day, I was wearing a jacket, and my husband goes, "Is that new?" And I was like, "Yep, just got it from Genesis." So love that I can, pop down the street and go get a nice new jacket or nice new sunglasses or whatever the case may be. But when you first launched the store, what was your vision?
Sure. I think, it's interesting. This question's coming up. We're making a couple tweaks to our mission statement, right? And it's because one of the things that was important to myself when we started was it's an underserved community. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that with the ups and downs of oil, a lot of bigger companies are a little nervous to plant their roots. And so that was one of the biggest things, was bringing something to the local community that wasn't already here. We're trying to offer a good and service that the community didn't have before we got here. Before we got here, Menards hadn't opened yet, Sportsman's Warehouse, all these other retailers were trying to get into Williston, and we tried to beat them here, not for any other reason than we wanted the local community to know that we were here to stay. Yeah, that was important to us. Was at the time, a lot of retailers were coming and going, and so being dependable, it's actually one of our core values, is being dependable both to our consumer and to our employees, making sure that people know that we are here, we're not going anywhere, we're trying to provide a good or service to the local community that wasn't here prior.
We love that. I mean, coming from a retail background myself, love, like I said earlier, that we can just go down the street and have those great goods and services. So let's can you paint a picture for our listeners? What can they expect when they go to Genesis? What kind of products do you have? What kind of brands do you have?
It's interesting. I was told yesterday at an Easter supper by a local, they thought we were a furniture store. And so we have to continue to tell this story. The amount of new people coming to town is pretty large. There's always new people moving in. And so I have to tell this story regularly. We sell name brand clothes for men, women, and children. We sell footwear and eyewear. Those are our top categories. And so when you get to brands, Oakley's always been a staple for us. Genesis and Oakley have like really intertwined our names together. Most people early on thought, oh, you guys are like a sunglass hat. Eyewear for us is integral with our roots. And so number one is for sure Oakley. We sell Under Armour, North Face, Vans, Hey Dude. Those are just some of the top name brands that we currently carry. Nothing is off brand. It's all name brand apparel.
Yeah, I was so grateful for you guys. So last summer, my dog, who is still puppy, chewed up one of my Birkenstocks, and I was so sad, but I was able to, again, just go down the street and go to Genesis and get a brand new pair of Birkenstocks and go about my summer life. So I can personally attest to, you have some great products, some great brands, that I rely on often, actually. So thank you. So we've talked a little bit about this, but you were one of the first businesses to open in Williston Square. Now,
Yeah.
what made you confident that this new development would be the right move for your business?
Well, I think our lease was coming up in our old space. And when we picked the old space, we picked it based off of what we thought the growth of Williston was going to do at the time. And as the lease was coming to an end, we were trying to check a few boxes. The space was too small. We had outgrown it. Number two, people were having a hard time finding us because we were on the back side of a building. And the third was we were looking at owning our own business or owning our own building. So those three check boxes were what we were trying to do. And as we looked at the growth of the community and kind of the direction it was going, one of the things that we really liked about Williston Square was, all the traffic on 2 is, they're seeing us every day as they're driving by. And that was a huge change from where we were previously. People had to search us out to find us, where now we're, hopefully front and center as people are driving through town.
Yeah, that visibility is huge. And when I first moved here, you were in that other location. And yeah, there were people that would be like, oh yeah, have you ever gone to Genesis? And I admittedly was like, where's that? So like, it's great that you've been able to make this change and, like you said, kind of be front and center, right, when you come into town on Highway 2. And, that is a huge piece of Williston, and its growth, its future. So we kind of have a vision for it. But what do you think, from your perspective, does Williston Square mean for the long-term growth of retail and local business within the city?
We're all hoping and praying that more businesses will move in here. The school has started. The housing is next on the list. We've all heard Taco Bell's going to be one of my neighbors, and right now, I can hear all the road work being done. I know people are groaning about the new intersection, but I think if they'll just be patient, I think when it's all said and done, just like all the road work that Williston has done, sometimes there's a little bit of pain points, but in the end, we're all kind of hoping that it's going to be better for us. That intersection has some unique challenges with having 4 or 5 roads all coming into that one section, and so nobody wants to go in for surgery, but they always go in hoping for a better outcome at the end. So, with all that activity going on, there's going to be a direct road right into the center of Williston Square, and I think it's really set up. It's really primed to be the focal point of the city, like intended.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of progress, and there's a lot more happening on the back end too. A lot of things happening behind the scenes, and so I also hope that we'll start seeing a lot more activity as well. And I think that realignment will be great as well for more access into the square and easier to get to you, which we all love. And yeah, just a lot more happening there. So, and I just want to take 1 second, just in case any of our listeners don't know what we're talking about with Williston Square. So that is the redevelopment of the former airport, Solon Field. We opened our brand new airport in 2019, a couple miles out of town. And so we had about 800 acres to redevelop into this live work play space. So in our last episode, we talked with Slim Chickens, who was one of the first movers. And then now we get to talk to Lenny, one of our other first movers.
I was trying to beat them, but they were a little faster in putting the building up than we were. So I can't say I was first, but we were close.
You were very close. I remember doing both of your ribbon cuttings, and it was like, oh boy, like everything is happening like kind of back to back here. So that was really exciting to be a part of. So why do you think Williston is a good place to be a small business owner?
I think one of the things that I've said to anybody that asks is, if you can do anything here, you can be successful. There's just a hunger for goods and services here in town, and if you will commit to being the best at your craft, whatever that may be, Williston is a place where you can be successful. And I think that's why a lot of people have come here over time. I mean, even all the way back to the 80s, even before that, like Williston has always been a place of opportunity. And if you're committed to being good at your craft, or committed to working hard for your customers, you can be successful here. And so I would just encourage anybody, if they want to give it a shot, we're ready. And what I think the slogan is, we're open for business.
Yep. And then the other one that we've been working with is where opportunity and innovation meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yep. And then for Williston Square, where you want to land, little homage to the the old airport.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, opportunity is a word that we've heard just across the board, from people who have lived here their whole lives, to people who have just moved here, to people who are just, looking at the market and thinking they might want to enter. I mean, opportunity is just, it's the word for Williston, and it's one that I've used throughout my career here as well. So I'm glad that you've seen that and experienced that. And you've seen, like you said, you started kind of looking at the Williston market in 2010. So in the past 15 years, I mean, how's the business landscape changed in Williston?
Thanks for making me feel old today. I would say initially, when I will remember the first time we were traveling around Williston, and I was talking with Sean, and I can remember driving around with Sean in a white Suburban, and we're looking at the city. And one of the things they were super proud of at the time was they had just updated the water treatment facility, and it was supposed to be a good enough upgrade to last every resident in the city for like 50 years. And that only lasted a couple of years because people kept coming in. And I only use it as a reference because early on, the problem was lack of space. There was no space to open a business. There was no open buildings. There was no open land. It was just crazy at the time trying to find places to do business. We had people that wanted to buy stuff. They needed goods and services. There was just no place to open. And that landscape has entirely changed. I look now at, there's plenty of places where new businesses could find a starting spot if they wanted. And I mean, that in and of itself has changed dramatically since we first opened. I would say the other thing that's a massive improvement is early on, it was really up and down. Like by that, I mean, there was new people coming in and then the oil would change and it's like, oh man, well now it's more stable. It's not so up and down. It's more stable. There's more families that have moved to town. It's less single men. So as a community overall, I would say Williston has set itself up to try to grow with families and less reliant on those single men coming to town and then going home on the weekends. And so overall, I just think, the landscape of the town, there's all kinds of stuff for families to do. The interesting thing I go back to, my wife and I went to Minot State, and we met a lot of people from Williston going to college. And at the time, everyone was coming back to Williston. We didn't understand, right? I mean, I wasn't from North Dakota. People were moving back to Williston. And so all these local people, they'd go away for college and they would come back. And, after college, I went to Dickinson. Still, like, I just couldn't understand why people were moving back home to Williston, right? And we moved here. And the difference between Williston and some of the other North Dakota towns was so drastic to my wife and I, right? There's so many new people moving to Williston. It has the small town feel, but we believe that it's more welcoming than some of the other cities in North Dakota because of the people that are all coming here from outside of North Dakota.
Yeah, there's a huge sense of community here that you're right. It really does speak to that small town feel. Like we're growing, we're in the realm at least of an urban place, of an urban city, but we still have that great sense of community.
Right.
And, to your point of everything being a little bit more family friendly, I think that's really evident in the building of a brand new school that you just mentioned, Slolan Elementary, that's going in Williston Square. The brand new water park that the Williston Community Builders have been working on. And then also I was just looking at a report that I pulled a couple of weeks ago, and we're almost exactly half and half men and women in our population, which, like you had said, is pretty different from not that long ago. Right. So people are coming here, they're staying here, they're building lives here, and that just kind of lends itself again to that sense of community that we're now seeing. So what are your future plans for Genesis? Do you have any new directions, any new ideas? What should we be looking for in your future?
There's always new things. If there's for anybody that knows me knows that I'm always looking for something new. I guess my opinion, if I'm not growing, I'm shrinking, and so I'm always looking for new opportunities. This year, we really focused on our website. We took some time. We created an e-commerce site. And that took quite a bit of time and energy and resources. And so for those out there now that want to look us up, you can find us at shopgenesis.com. That was a big part of 2025, creating some stability. And we've done so many things over the last 5 years. We really need to take a year and just kind of figure out the next direction. And so what's next for us? I think in a dream world, we're trying to figure out a space to open a second location. I mean, I think that's the natural growth of retailers. Trying to find a spot to open a second location is the natural progression for us.
I think the e-commerce is a great step in that direction because you're hitting a wider audience, more people are learning about you. And I was looking around on the site a couple of days ago, and yeah, I mean it's not for the faint of heart putting that together. So applause for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It looks great. And for any entrepreneurs or small business owners looking at entering the Williston market or relocating or locating in Williston Square, what advice do you have for them?
So one of the best things that we did, we went to the Small Business Development Center. I sat down with Keith Olson and just kind of went over our numbers, because I guess in my opinion, we all think our ideas are the best ideas. If they weren't the best ideas, we wouldn't have them. And so we tend to have a skewed perception of our own ideas. And so having a neutral party sit down with you and like, nope, that's a good idea. Yeah, you should. Or like, well, it's not a bad idea, but maybe you need to tweak it here or here. Keith has such a deep investment in the community and making small businesses work. The Economic Development Center. I mentioned Sean Wanko, who you had some big shoes to fill, and you've done a great job doing it. And so to me, there's a team of people that want us to succeed just as much as we want to succeed. And I think using those resources to your advantage, like I said, Williston Economic Development, Small Business Development Center, you're able to sit down and go over your numbers and kind of figure out what works for you and maybe making small tweaks.
Yes, and thank you for those kind words. Definitely some very large shoes to fill and fancy shoes. So hopefully I've done well in both aspects. But yeah, that is one thing that I saw even from the outside looking in before I was in this role, that the Small Business Development Center and the team here are just so invested in the small businesses, and we're, at least since I've been here, constantly looking at more ways to help and get involved and
Sure.
To help be a support system. Because that's one thing I've very much noticed with entrepreneurs is a lot of them feel as though they're on an island, and it's like, nope,
For sure.
there's a community here, there's people here, there's resources. So yeah, thank you for utilizing those resources and for sharing them with all the other entrepreneurs who are interested.
Yeah, it's like I said, I heavily encourage utilizing the local resources that are there to help us succeed.
So before we wrap up, where can people find Genesis if they want to check out the store and learn more?
As I mentioned before, we are now online at shopgenesis.com. Kind of tells our history, our core values, who we are as individuals, who we are as a retailer. And if you're not interested in learning about us, we still have all of the stuff that you can buy there. We are physically located at 3210 3rd Avenue West, and that's right next to Slim Chickens in the Williston Square, Williston, North Dakota. Shop Genesis ND on Facebook and Instagram. I guess now that we have a website, in the old days I pushed everybody to Facebook, but I still have to remember to include both social and e-com.
Wonderful. And then this is one more question that I always like to ask small businesses. And I think I've asked you this before, but where did the name Genesis come from?
The name Genesis had several meaningful things to us. Number one, we were launching a new name and it was a new beginning. And so for us, it made sense. We are believers. I'm an absolute church-going believer. And so it had some meaningfulness there. And lastly, some people don't know this. When I was a senior in high school, I was voted most likely to own a clothing company. And as I've watched myself through the years, every generation or every iteration of as my style has changed through the years, as I went from a single male to a married male with no kids to kids, and just going through the different phases of life, my style has changed. And we felt like that was a genesis, right? It was a new beginning, whether you're celebrating losing some weight that you've been trying to work on, whether you're celebrating new life with a new baby, any kind of new beginning that you have in life. Sometimes, for us in North Dakota, we have all 4 seasons. And so, I always say one thing about winter is it really makes you look forward to spring. And so there's that new beginning of spring, and now you're wearing dresses and short sleeve tees instead of sweatshirts and jackets. And so it really was about all of those wrapped into one. That's where the name came from.
Yeah, I love that. And it was very fitting too that you were part of this new development
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Williston Square. So it all came together. And for those of you looking for those spring outfits, there's some lovely spring things over at Genesis, some spring colors. It's fun to walk in there and just kind of see the explosion of color finally.
I think second winter is finally gone. So we are officially in spring.
All right, Lenny, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners? Anything that I didn't touch on?
I would just say, don't be afraid. If you have what you think is a good idea, or you have a passion for something, stop in, see Williston Economic Development or Keith Olson, and see if they think your idea is also as good, and roll it out, because Williston is here. And I think there's plenty of opportunities for those that are willing to take a chance.
Well, thank you so much, Lenny, and thank you to our listeners for listening to today's episode of the Williston Works Podcast, brought to you by the City of Williston. Please like and subscribe for more interviews and content. And in the meantime, you can learn more about Williston Economic Development by visiting willistondevelopment.com. We'll see you next time on the Williston Works Podcast.